Some mysteries refuse to be forgotten. Some legends never fade. And some conspiracies demand to be uncovered. This is Codename Unknown. Mysteries, conspiracies, and legends. Where expert investigator and host Jackson Wolf dives deep into history's most perplexing enigmas, chilling folklore, and secretive cover-ups. Each week, he pushes the boundaries of what we know, uncovering hidden truths and questioning the stories we've been told. The search for answers begins now. Open your mind, question everything, and step into the shadows.
Welcome to Codename Unknown, Mysteries, Conspiracies, and Legends. I am Jackson Wolf, and today we descend into the folklore of fear, exploring how myths, legends, and conspiracy narratives shape what we think is dangerous, who we trust, and how we behave. Fear stories are not relics, they are living, adaptive folklore. They migrate from tales to urban legends to viral posts, carrying our anxieties forward. In this episode, I will map the psychology that makes these stories sticky, the cultural roles they play, the rumor mechanics that launch them, and the ways they leap from words into actions. Along the way, we will test famous cases, from Halloween candy scares to Slender Man, and consider how digital platforms accelerate and monetize dread. My goal is not to debunk curiosity, but to sharpen it, so you can tell when a compelling narrative reflects reality and when it rehearses our oldest fears. When I say folklore of fear, I mean any shared narrative that encodes threat, cautionary myths, urban legends, rumors, and modern conspiracies. These narratives are adaptive because our minds are tuned to overdetect danger. Evolution favored false alarms over missed predators, a pattern psychologists call hyperactive agency detection. If the bush rustled, assuming a lurking agent cost little, ignoring it could cost everything. Layered on top is negativity bias, our tendency to prioritize bad news and threat-sensitive cognition, which lowers our threshold for evidence under uncertainty. Stories that imply intentional harm recruit these systems automatically. A whisper about tainted candy, a post about shadowy elites, a clip of a strange light in the sky, all efficiently ping our ancient circuits. Fear narratives survive not because they are always true, but because they fit the operating system of a vigilant brain designed to keep us alive in ambiguous environments. Several cognitive quirks make fear stories unusually sticky. The availability heuristic tells us that events we can easily recall feel more common, so vivid anecdotes outcompete dry statistics. Proportionality bias nudges us to assume big effects have big causes, feeding narratives that assign catastrophic events to grand conspirators rather than mundane failures. Our pattern-seeking minds link coincidences into plots, especially when outcomes feel unfair. Social contagion amplifies all this. Emotional content spreads faster through groups, and fear is among the most contagious emotions. When institutions are distrusted and ambiguity is high, these dynamics can crystallize into moral panics, cycles where a perceived threat to social order is exaggerated, authorities over-respond, and outgroups are demonized. The pattern is self-reinforcing. The panic generates more anecdotes which make the threat feel ubiquitous, which invites further escalation. Without checks, the feedback loop becomes a cultural weather system of dread itself. Beyond psychology, fear folklore performs social work. Cautionary tales enforce taboos by dramatizing consequences, stray from the path and the wolf appears, ignore curfews and the hook-handed stranger finds you. Communities also use frightening stories to create cohesion, because sharing a threat clarifies who we are and who we are not. Legends police boundaries by warning against outsiders, stigmatized professions, or novel technologies, often mapping anxiety onto a scapegoated group. During uncertainty, accusations can migrate to the most marginal, reinforcing existing hierarchies. Yet the same stories can encode practical safety too. Tales about haunted crossroads, for instance, may encode the risk of night travel, and water spirits that seize children can encode drowning hazards. Culture shapes content, but the functions rhyme. Explain the unexplainable, warn the vulnerable, and reduce complexity through narrative. Fear folklore is a social technology for managing risk, identity, and moral order in every known society. How do these stories spread so fast? Classic rumor research by Allport and Postman offers a guide. Rumor intensity equals importance times ambiguity. When stakes feel high and facts are scarce, talk rushes in. Memetics reframes ideas as replicators, with selection pressures favoring narratives that are easy to remember and easy to retell. 3 features boost stickiness. First, ambiguity leaves room for personalization, inviting listeners to supply missing details. Second, minimal counterintuitiveness introduces 1 or 2 surprising elements within an otherwise familiar frame, making tales memorable without overloading belief. Third, friend of a friend attribution feels intimate yet untraceable, granting credibility while avoiding verification. Social media supercharges each factor, letting emotionally charged, lightly sourced claims travel through dense networks at speed. The result is a folklore workshop in real time where edits, screenshots, and comments function like communal scribes, polishing fear into a persuasive, portable story, ready for constant reuse. Sometimes the story leaves the page. Folklorists call this ostension, when people enact a narrative as if to prove or disprove it. Teenagers drive to a haunted bridge, knock 3 times, and run, filming themselves for proof and status. That performative testing is labeled legend tripping, and it operates like a ritual. You flirt with danger to experience adrenaline, group bonding, and mastery over uncertainty. Most trips end as theater, but a few cross into harm. The Slender Man stabbing in Wisconsin showed how an invented internet entity could be treated as obligatory by vulnerable minds. Copycat scares after famous crimes are another form of ostension, as are vigilantes staking out parking lots because of trafficking rumors. The boundary blurs when a legend supplies both motive and method. Importantly, the participants are not always malicious. They are acting inside a world the story made real enough to navigate for them. Case studies reveal repeating motifs. Consider Halloween candy poisoning. Decades of data show no verified cases of strangers randomly killing children with tampered treats. The few tragedies typically involved family or unrelated causes, yet the legend persists because it externalizes parental fear and justifies protective rituals. The satanic panic of the 80s alleged vast ritual abuse networks in daycares. Exhaustive investigations found little credible evidence, but careers and communities were scarred. Point Pleasant's Mothman sightings clustered before the Silver Bridge collapse, fusing infrastructural anxiety with a winged omen. The Chupacabra emerged in Puerto Rico in the 90s, with descriptions shifting after media images circulated, demonstrating feedback between screens and eyewitness memory. La Llorona, the Weeping Woman, and Japan's Slit-Mouth Spirit, both patrol boundaries around children, night, and courtesy, local flavors for universal concerns. Legends adapt content, but the functions and transmission patterns barely change across place and time. Digital platforms act as accelerants. Algorithms reward engagement, and fear reliably engages, so alarming posts receive free amplification. Deepfakes and cheapfakes add synthetic evidence, while screenshots strip context but preserve certainty. Comment sections and forums are modern folklore workshops where skeptical voices and one-up embellishments collide, iterating a legend within hours. Contemporary conspiracy narratives slot neatly into this ecology. Rumors of trafficking crews lurking in parking lots redirect vigilance from known risk factors to cinematic ones. Claims that 5G causes widespread illness confuse correlation and causation, and QAnon-style epics offer moral clarity by recoding randomness as war. These stories redistribute trust, elevating influencers and peers while demonizing institutions. Perception of risk drifts from base rates to headline bait. We fixate on rare dramatic events and ignore common dangers like driving, domestic violence, or medical noncompliance, widening the gap between data and dread that govern everyday life and health. Follow the incentives and you meet fear entrepreneurs. Media outlets chase attention, political actors mobilize voters, scammers sell protection, and grifters monetize clicks. Each has reasons to sensationalize low-probability threats and frame opponents as existential dangers. The content cycles, but motifs persist. Witches become aliens, then shadow elites. Plagues become biolabs, then rogue algorithms. New tech simply reskins old anxieties. So what can listeners do? Build a toolkit. Triangulate sources, privileging primary evidence over hearsay. Ask what would prove the claim false, and attempt that test. Steelman the opposing view to check whether you are rejecting a straw person. Track your own arousal. If a story spikes fear or outrage, pause before sharing. Compare internationally to resist ethnocentrism. Notice how La Llorona, Kuchisake Onna, or river spirits overlap with local warnings. And when you tell stories, practice ethics. Provide context, mark uncertainty, avoid stigmatizing groups, and minimize harm always. Let's land the plane. Today we define the folklore of fear as living narratives that encode threat, rooted in evolved vigilance and amplified by cognitive biases. We studied rumor mechanics, from importance and ambiguity to minimal counterintuitiveness and friend-of-a-friend credibility. We saw how culture harnesses fear to enforce norms, police boundaries, and sometimes scapegoat, and how stories can jump into action through ostension and legend tripping. Case studies expose the gap between data and dread, while digital ecosystems turbocharge spread and shifted trust. We mapped who profits and built a toolkit with ethical guardrails. Now I want to hear from you. Send your local fear legends, recent viral scares, and any data or first-hand context. We will select a few for a mini investigation in a follow-up episode. Next time, a deep dive on how institutions and corporations operationalize fear to steer policy, markets, and behavior.
You've been listening to Codename Unknown, Mysteries, Conspiracies, and Legends. The search for answers never stops, and the truth is always waiting to be uncovered. If you enjoyed the journey, subscribe to us, and don't miss what's next. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning everything.